Hey everybody, what's going on? It is James here with Crypto Common Sense. Got a market update video for you today, and I've got a lot of information to cover, so I'm going to try to move fairly quickly. Before I jump into the content, please do me one huge favor. Go ahead and hit the like button on this video, and also don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Make sure you check that little bell icon to get notifications when I come out with new videos each and every day. So first, let's take a look at Bitcoin. Let's talk about what is going on in the world of Bitcoin. So right now I've got a 1 hour chart pulled up, and I know that a lot of people are starting to get bullish, and I'm going to talk about some reasons for that. I'm also going to talk about reasons to be bearish. So there are a lot of people getting bullish again, right? Saying, hey, this thing is not dropping. It's not going anywhere near 9,000. It's not going to 8,000, 8,500, etc. They're correct, but if we look at a 1 hour chart, we can see that we are indeed respecting this downward channel. Okay, we're just trending down, right? Here's our RSI trend line going down, down, down. Had a little false break above it right here, but now we've tucked back inside of it. And we're inside of this channel, right? Just very, very textbook stuff. Until we break out of this channel, it looks bearish. However, here's the thing. If you look at a 4 hour chart, the picture looks quite a bit differently. When I look at a 4 hour chart, this looks like it's in a falling wedge. Okay, so our RSI looks like it's in a symmetrical triangle. We had a larger triangle. Let me show you that real quick. We had this larger triangle in play that looked like this, and it looked like we had fallen out of the bottom of it, but now we've popped back in. So if we adjust our lines, we can actually see that it's just formed a smaller symmetrical triangle, so it's still within that. But this is not a symmetrical triangle. This is a falling wedge, okay? And a falling wedge is typically, you're getting ready to hear something you never hear me say. It's typically a bullish signal. It's typically a sign that price is going to go up if it can break out of that wedge. Now, it can also fall out of the bottom of it, but it's a little bit less common. So I am definitely keeping a close eye on this. If this thing starts to break north, I think there's a very good possibility that we're going to head up and test the top of our descending triangle. So let me get rid of RSI. I want to be very, very clear about this. If we break out of this, I don't automatically think all the targets for 8,500 are null and void. I don't think that our correction is over, nothing like that. What I think is if we break out of it, we will very possibly go up and test somewhere up in this area around 10.5, 10.6. Okay, it's very possible that we do that just to shake out the late bears and to get the bulls to go long and set one last bull trap before we go down. So that's definitely a possibility. If we measure the wedge, strictly speaking from a TA point of view, it's got about a $659 breakout target. So if we move that over here, it would put us up right around 10.9. So again, very possible that we go up, double top here, false break above this line, suck in the bulls, and they go down. Also possible that it's the start of a major rally. Okay, I'm going to talk about that in a second. So that's kind of what I'm seeing on the larger time frame. I still personally believe that we are inside of distribution, that this is not accumulation, but this is actually distribution, and that we are going to go back down. And if you want to take a look at this chart I posted a few days ago on Twitter, this is actually a chart from way back in 2005, but it's a really good example from stockcharts.com. These green zones were accumulation zones. This yellow zone was a distribution zone before it dumped. It dumped from up around $180, $185 all the way down to $104. If you take a look and you just objectively ask yourself which one of these looks more like Bitcoin, I think it's very easy to say. This one went up, had a correction, went up. This one went up, had a correction, up, correction, up. However, this one chopped sideways for quite a while before it finally dumped out of the bottom. And this is very similar to what Bitcoin looks like right now. So I still think we are in distribution. If you don't know what I'm talking about the wick-off events. Wick-off basically says that there's an accumulation area, a markup, a distribution area where things are overbought, and then finally a markdown area where it goes back to the mean, so to speak. All right. In the case of Bitcoin, I think it's entirely possible that we are actually in a larger wick-off event that looks like this, and that right now we're somewhere in this area right here. Okay, meaning that yes, if we are in this area, we still have a pump left before we finally dump out the side. Okay. This is the last point of supply is what that LPSY stands for. So let's talk about a few different things. I'm going to talk about Litecoin. I'm going to talk about alts. Just a lot to cover, like I said. So that's kind of where I'm at on Bitcoin. I still think it could go either way. I'm in no open swing trades. I have no open day trades right now. I still have my long-term position trades up, meaning I'm still short long-term, meaning I've sold all of my Bitcoin. I have a few scraps for mining that are, maybe like 1/10 of a Bitcoin or 2/10 of a Bitcoin or something sitting around here and there. But for the most part, I've sold all my Bitcoin, and I haven't bought any of it back yet. Also sold all of my Litecoin. I have not bought any of it back yet. But here's the thing. When I start looking at some of these alt charts, there is such a muddled picture right now. Because if I zoom into a daily, what I'm looking for, when I'm looking to go long on an alt, I'm looking for a couple different things. And this goes for Bitcoin too. First off, I want to see it come back down to the golden ratio, which is that 61.8 fib level. That's one of the main things I'm looking for. Litecoin has done that. You can see it came down inside the 61.8 fib, right through here. Okay, so that would be a reason to buy. I talked about this in a past video. But what I'm also looking for is I'm looking for something called market structure. Specifically, I'm looking for it to put in a W. Some people will call those W's. Those are also known as double bottoms. So if I go to a daily chart, Litecoin has put in the double bottom, right, down, up, down, up. And what I'm looking for is after it breaks the neckline of the double bottom, the neckline is the center point right here, I'm looking for it to come back down, retest that, and bounce off of it. Okay, that is an ideal entry. So I got to say that Litecoin right now has my interest. It's looking like I might want to go long here. Here's the problem. Bitcoin is really, really messing the scene up, because any other time, I would be going long at $69.23 or $69.10 in that ballpark on Litecoin. Anytime. No brainer. Boom, I'm going long. The problem is if I go long on Litecoin right here, and Bitcoin finally dumps, like I'm expecting to 8,500 or 6,000 or 4,200 or whatever, if it finally dumps, there's a really good chance it's just going to yank Litecoin down with it. So I'm between a rock and a hard spot. I may end up taking a very, very small position on it, but I'm going to be patient and I'm going to wait just a little bit longer to see how this thing acts. But I think a lot of alt charts look the same way right now. I think a lot of alt charts are putting in those W's, right? This is an OMG chart. I haven't looked at it in advance, but I bet it's probably doing the same thing. Yeah, well, not really. This one came down, up. This looks like it's trying to come down and maybe go up from here. I don't know. I just know that a lot of alts are looking really, really good. So there's so many mixed signals right now. It's a really, really tough time to trade. If we look at our total market cap, excluding Bitcoin, it looks like total dog shit, right? It looks like what we did was we fell out of the bottom of our trend line, and that we came up and retested and got rejected. Okay, that's what that looks like. And ideally, what I'd like to see happen on that, let me show you. I would like to see this thing come down. I talked about this in yesterday's video. I'd like to see this thing come down and test this and bounce off of it. Okay, basically retest. This was the W, right? This is the neckline. So that'd be awesome. Also, we have a falling wedge on these alts. Looks something like that, maybe. I don't know. Depends how you draw it, really. It's a weekly chart. It's tough to say. Maybe this was the wedge. Maybe we did break out of it, right? I think that's actually the wedge. And what's happening is we're probably going to come down here. I talked about this in yesterday's video, so I don't want to go too long on it. You can watch yesterday's video if you're interested in this. I mapped all this out, how there's a volume gap down here and everything. All right, so I'm kind of watching that. But when I look at the total market cap, including Bitcoin, then I get this bullish picture, right? Here's my descending triangle, and we've broken out of it. And we just keep testing it as support and keep finding support on it. Normally, that's a bullish sign, right? So that's weird because that's not lining up with everything else. And the other thing is if we look at this thing, we take all this triangle stuff off, and we take this moving average off, and we just draw some fib levels, watch this. So Bitcoin, remember, Bitcoin has not retraced to the 50% level. It hasn't retraced to the 61.8. It just keeps hovering around the 38 level. But if we look at the total market cap, including Bitcoin and all altcoins, we've actually had a retracement to the 50% level 3 times now. bam, 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 right? It almost looks like it's an uptrend. Now, I know that's crazy sounding, but that doesn't look bearish. That almost looks like it's consolidating before a move up. So if you look at the alt charts by themselves, they look terrible. If you look at Bitcoin by itself, it looks terrible. It looks like it's terribly overbought. But if you look at the total market cap, it looks almost bullish, right? Which is really, really weird, because if we look at this GAN principle that I talked about in yesterday's video, right? Sure, we trace 50% of the move and 50% of the time. It's basically done that, okay? So it's entirely possible that this is just the way the market is now, right? And that we did retrace, we did correct, it's just the money came out of the altcoin instead of coming out of Bitcoin. That is possible, okay? Now, I'm still bearish. I want to be very clear. I haven't changed my stance, but I'm starting to see some signs that make me wonder a little bit, right? Maybe what's actually happened, this is one possibility. People have talked about institutional money and stuff, and for the most part, I don't really put a whole lot of stock in that. But I have to acknowledge that there is a possibility that maybe what's happened is maybe the market did correct, and it all corrected in the altcoins because altcoins are more retail investor driven, and maybe the reason Bitcoin has not come back down to the 50 or the 61.8 is because maybe that really is institutional money putting money into Bitcoin, right? Maybe that's not just money flowing from alts to Bitcoin. I think it's unlikely, but I do want to acknowledge that it is a possibility, right? It is possible that institutions have been buying Bitcoin, and that because they're buying Bitcoin, the price is not coming back down. And if that's the case, it is entirely possible that it never comes back down. Highly unlikely, right? For all the people that like to comment on my Twitter posts and my YouTube videos and do so in an arrogant fashion, not just in a debate fashion where they're just stating a different opinion, that's totally fine. But when people get real arrogant and real cocky and they start using laughing at me and stuff like that, the only thing it reminds me of is 2017. There was a guy in 2017 with a huge group, 100,000 members in his group, and I said something about Bitcoin being a blow off top. And he basically ridiculed me and said that anybody who didn't buy before $10,000 was screwed, that it was never coming back down. He was wrong. And that's what I think of. I think of that arrogant guy who said it's never going below $10,000 again. And of course, it went all the way down to $3,100. So I'm just reminded of those people that arrogance and trading does not mix. If you think you know what the market's going to do, you're in real trouble. The market will always do what it wants to do. It doesn't care what you think. Right? So I think it's going down, but I acknowledge fully that it could actually just explode and go north. Okay, this does look bullish to me, the overall market cap. So we'll see how it goes, right? I'm still playing it as a bear, all right? So that's kind of what I want to talk about on Bitcoin. It's kind of what I want to talk about on altcoins, total market cap, also on Litecoin. The other thing I wanted to show you is a really neat chart. I actually saw this yesterday. I was kind of dogging gold a little bit. The chart looked really bad on gold. So somebody said, what about silver? So here's a silver chart. I'll just show you this real quickly because I know this is mainly a crypto channel. Right now, silver has one of the best looking charts I've seen in a long time. If you look at this is a monthly chart. Silver actually found its bottom, found a really good support, and look what it just did. It put in a beautiful, beautiful W. It came up, busted out of that W, and the very next bar, right, this is a monthly chart, the very next bar came down, tested the neckline, and then shot up. So now what I'm doing on silver is I'm waiting for a small retracement so that I can buy me some silver. I'm not telling you to buy silver. I'm saying that's what I'm doing, right? If I draw my fibs, I'll be looking to buy silver somewhere in this zone here. I'll have to watch it. I have to zoom in, not on a monthly chart, but look at a daily chart on silver to see what I want to do. But ideally, I'm going to try to grab some silver when it gets back down in this area, right? And that'll be a long-term hold. It's not like crypto where it moves, and I'll sell it in a week or a month. That'll be something I hold probably for 10 years. But I found this interesting because the chart is just so darn perfect. This is what you want to see when something breaks out. You want to see, if we switch to a weekly, you want to see it put in a W, you want to see it come up out of it, break the neckline, and then come back down and retest it. Now, if we compare this to Bitcoin, and we look at Bitcoin on a weekly chart, so this is Bitcoin's W. Came down, up, here's our neckline, down, up, failed, finally broke through. Awesome, that's bullish, right? And here's the problem. It never came back down to test the neckline. It just went parabolic. And that is another reason that I'm so darn bullish, because this needs to come down and test this neckline. Doesn't mean it has to happen. There's nothing guaranteed. It just means that it should, in theory, have tested this neckline. And because it didn't, watch this. Now, I've shown this in lots and lots of videos, but maybe this will make more sense when I show it like this. Now, if we look at a volume profile, now you see why there's a huge gap here. Because price never came back down and tested the neckline of that W. And we have this massive gap. And it's very, very likely that we are going to go all the way back down here and test that neckline. And if we do, it'll look something like this, probably down to 8,500, get a dead cat bounce, retest 9,000, flipped from support to resistance, down to 6,000, maybe 5,500, retest this old level of resistance / support, get a bounce, and then down, 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 right? Now, it doesn't necessarily mean it'll happen in this timeline, right? Nobody knows. But overall, if it happens, it's probably going to look something like that. It's not going to look like this. Very, very unlikely that it looks like that. Okay? It will just work its way down. And the nasty thing about that is what happens is people will be going long here, and then they'll think that it's going back up, but instead it'll start to dump. They'll be going long here, and it'll dump, right? And that's what happened in 2018 too, was every time it went down, people were like, buy the dip. Well, in a bull market, dips are awesome because then they go up. But in a bear market or a downtrend, dips suck because they're actually falling nice. They just keep going down, right? So, yeah, I want to see Bitcoin come back down and test that darn neckline. That's what I want to see. And then I would feel really, really good about going long on Bitcoin in a big, big way, right? If we look, this was basically from the time we dropped, right? And by the way, this changes as you include more or less bars, right? So now if you look at it, it looks a little different. Okay, what I want to do is I want to try to get December from the bottom until now, and here's this big gap down here. Alrighty, so that's where we're at. If we look at this chart, this is what I would recommend you do. I would recommend that you take a look at each of the different timelines and try to find convergence. Try to find a spot where the hourly, the 4 hour, the daily, they're all telling you the same thing. That's what you really want to look for. And when you can do that, that's going to help you make a much more informed decision. For me right now, there are a few bullish things, but overall it's mostly just bearish. And I really do believe that we are absolutely in a distribution phase, and that what comes next is our actual correction. And I also believe that alt season is coming up soon, that all we're really waiting for is for this to come back down and test this neckline. And I will tell you this, if, let me look at the dominance in just a second. If this thing comes down, if alts fall just a little bit down to this level and Bitcoin falls a lot, that's actually going to decrease Bitcoin's dominance, okay? So if we take a look, somebody asked about the dominance chart. If we take a look at total dominance of Bitcoin, it's very, very high right now. Yeah, this was an awesome trade. Look at that. Shorted Litecoin up here. Man, the bottom fell of it. The only thing that sucked about this trade was I closed it way too soon. Fell a lot further than I thought it would. That's a Litecoin Bitcoin trade. Total dominance, that's what we're looking for. Okay, so market dominance, if we look at this, if we look at a weekly chart, this thing is way up here, very close to all-time highs. It was higher over here just because the altcoins weren't really playing a big role in the market. But once altcoins kind of came into the market, you can see that this is the highest really that dominance has ever been, right? This was way back here, was in early mid 2017 before the alts took their run. So it looks like it's trying to top out. It's really hard to kind of draw fibs or anything on this because the way it started at 100 instead of starting at 0. But overall, it looks like it's trying to top out a little bit, and I would expect the dominance to start dropping. And for that to happen, either Bitcoin has to stay flat and alts have to go up, or Bitcoin has to drop and alts have to drop less, right? One of those two things is the most likely scenario. So I do think that we're going to see this dominance come back down. If we do draw Fibonacci levels, what we're going to see is that, this 38 level right here would be right around 58. And then if we have a true alt season, like just an explosive alt season, maybe we see this pull all the way back down to around 50%. Okay, but I don't really use this to trade off of. It's more of just a general direction of, the strength of the market, strength of altcoins versus Bitcoin. So it's totally possible that we've topped here and that we are going to start going back down. Okay. And again, to go down doesn't mean alts go up, right? That's some of the confusion people get. They're like, okay, well, dominance is so high, altcoins are going to have to go up now so that this can come down. That's not true. If Bitcoin falls 20%, right? And by the way, I'm just pulling, that's just a random number, right? Bitcoin falls 20% and alts fall 10%, alts will gain dominance because they're falling less. They're not falling as fast as Bitcoin, all right? So overall, that's kind of my view of the market. Short term, like I said, I'm not in a position. I'm waiting to see how this channel plays out. I do not want to go short at $10,167, right, or $10,144, because the risk reward just is not there. And I still believe it's entirely possible that we're going to have some type of break up to test either the top side of this triangle or to test 10.8 or 10.9 to trap more bulls and shake out the bears before we finally dump. If we're going by the wick-off logic, like I said, we should retrace to the $8,500 level no later than this blue line, which is September 30th. So that's still 19 days away. We also have the backed event, which is coming up on September 23rd, which is going to be right in this area. Okay, so just remember, we don't know what's going to happen. It could be that the news of backed launching, that some people consider bullish news, it could be that news is actually what's propping this market up, and that once it launches, it becomes a buy the rumor, sell the news type of event. And of course, if we do have a huge sell-off, that's what happened with CME as well. The day CME launched, the bear market started. So it could be that the day that backed launches is the day that we finally go back into a correction. And if the correction is deep enough, it would not be a correction. It would actually be basically an extended market, an extended bear market, which I've talked about many times in the past, that there's that distinct possibility that we are actually in nothing more than a B leg, or what some people might call a relief rally, or what some people might call an echo bubble. It could be that this is A, this is B, and that C will take us all the way down to this 1350 area to fill in this old gap that is still living on our chart from 2017, right? And that area, that gap was never filled. Okay, so it could be that that's what we're looking at. I would much rather just see this thing come down, ping into this line down here, test it, and then have a nice bounce off of it. But time will tell. All right. The key is to be prepared for any scenario. The key is to know what your targets are and to know what your price points are. If this turns into a bullish scenario and starts to go up, at what point are you going to be buying? At what point are your stop losses, et cetera, et cetera. And if it goes down, the key is to know what your targets are the same way. One thing I will tell you is that there's two different scenarios on this zoomed out time frame. I'm going to wrap up with this one last thing. I'm always showing you the bearish stuff because I am a bear. I believe it's going down. But in the possible, in the scenario that I'm wrong and this thing starts to go up, there is actually a valid setup going on right now. There's actually something called a breakout trade setup that actually is in play. And essentially, I'm going to show you what that setup is. I'm not going to explain it because it wouldn't be fair to the person that teaches this stuff. I actually paid him $1,000 to learn how to do this stuff, this breakout trade stuff, a couple of years ago in 2017. And it's really his stuff. So really, I just want to show you that it's here. Okay, so essentially what would happen if we start to go north is it would have a target of around $19,838. And what I would be doing is I would be entering a trade position right here to go long. Okay, and if I went long there, my stop loss would be right here. And then if we get up to this level, I would move my stop loss to here. And if we get up to this level, I would move my stop loss to here. And if we get up to this level, I would take profit and close the trade. So I do have a plan if we suddenly turn into a bull run, right? If this suddenly goes up instead of down, I'm not going to be sitting on my hands going, oh God, I missed the boat, I missed the boat, I missed the boat. I'm going to be opening a trade. I'm going to be opening a long position at this level right here, okay? That is $11,700 and some odd dollars, I'm not telling you to do the same thing. You have to understand that this is a very risky trade, and that if it suddenly starts to go back down, my stop loss is going to be a 22% loss. Now, I will not be putting my entire portfolio into that trade, right? My personal risk management says that I'm never allowed to risk more than 3% on a single trade. Doesn't mean I only put 3% of my portfolio in. It means that whatever I put in, my loss can't be more than 3%. So in this case, my stop loss would be 22%, right? So the way that works is what I would do is I would just simply take a calculator and say, okay, what is 23% divided by 3? And it's 766. So if my entire portfolio, just a round number, my entire portfolio is 10,000 divided by 7.66, I can put $1,305 in that trade, in that scenario, right? And then if I lose 22%, I'm gonna lose $287. $287 divided by 10,000, it's 2.87% of my portfolio, right? So that's how that works. And again, those are just round numbers for really easy math. All right, so with all that being said, please remember I am literally some guy sitting in a spare bedroom. I am not a financial advisor. I'm not your financial advisor. Nothing in this video is financial advice or trade advice. You should always do your own due diligence before making any type of investment. Also, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You can check the description for links where you can follow me on TradingView, Twitter, and also where you can join my free Facebook group. This is James with Crypto Common Sense. Trade safe.